Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm Roy. Of course, our show, what we do is we talk about issues that affect small businesses, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and try to bring guests on that, that can have an impact for those businesses. We can talk about actionable items, a lot of things that we may not have thought about, or if you have thought about it, we can try to help provide guests that can provide that solution for you. So today we're fortunate enough to have Tracy Lamourie. She is a high-profile, international award-winning publicist and the founder and managing director of Lamourie Media. She's also a Universal Women's Network 2020 Woman of Inspiration winner for the Women in Media Award and the author of an upcoming book, Get Repped, Build Your Brand with Effective Public and Media Relations. Tracy, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to your audience.
You bet. So let's just talk a little bit about that. I think media relations it's important because I think there are a lot of channels. Traditionally we think of marketing nowadays as putting an ad up on the internet or Facebook, but there are a lot of opportunities through traditional media as well, not only to get the exposure of links to us from them, but also just get direct exposure through them.
Absolutely there are. And that's something that I would say 80% of entrepreneurs, honestly, across industries do not consider that or aren't even aware of that.
Right.
Once they get to the corporate level, it's common to have a communications team, right? Which is essentially a publicist. But at the entrepreneur level, and it's a shame because they're literally daily missing opportunities where media is actually looking for sources, as well as those opportunities where they can be telling their story, reaching out with media advisories and press releases, and it's just as easy to get, with a skill, with an understanding what the newsroom's looking for and a skilled way of telling your story. It's just as easy to get mainstream media attention, TV, radio, print, as it is to be, to get international podcast attention on high-profile podcasts like yours.
Yeah.
And if people aren't doing those things these days, this is where you hear the term thought leadership, even though some people think that's a silly expression. But if you're not looking for ways to sort of talk about your industry, your field, what you do, other people in your industry are. And so proceeding, more and more as we move forward, you're getting left behind and you're just being stuck with your own little customer base that won't expand if you're not in the game, essentially.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to, know contacts like you that can be the I guess, media relations department for small businesses that, can't afford to have somebody on full time because, this kind of falls under the category of we don't know what we don't know. And, a lot of times entrepreneurs fall into something because they're good at either making something or providing a service, but this whole back end of the business, and that's kind of, that was why I started this show, was to try to help them with this. But this media thing, it's tough because you got to know how to get through to you can't just pick up the phone and call these guys and think that they're going to be like, hey, yeah, we've been waiting on you to call us, come on down, or, we're coming out or do something. You have to know how to, get through the right channels.
Yeah, and it starts with two things. Number one is, who are you contacting? Are you contacting the right media that would report on that? The basics. Like, you don't contact the sports guy with the business story, which sounds obvious, but it's not. People do it all the time, and there's no better way to annoy the media. Right. But the other side of it too is really understanding, before you even think about contacting the media, is understanding they're not in the business of giving you free advertising. They're quite aware of the value of that space, right? Just like you're aware of the value of your podcast, thing, but you don't put everybody on, even though they might be nice, they might be whatever. You have a certain audience and a message and a framework that any potential guest has to fit into. And so people all the time, when entrepreneurs finally understand the value of media and that it's not just for celebrities or sports stars, the next hurdle is for them to really truly understand the difference between editorial and advertorial.
Okay.
Huge difference. So you never watch the news, right, and see a new and improved product. Doesn't matter how amazing a product is, it's not in that 22-minute newscast. It's just, no, that's not news, right? So you have to understand, get yourself in the head frame of what you want to gift them with content that actually is quality content that feeds their audience and what their goal is. So you have to be thinking about how the newsroom thinks. And the first thing they're likely to think, especially in a business story, the editor is going to think, buy an ad.
Right.
Buy an ad. Why don't you buy an ad? They know you're there to buy. To make, they're a business too, and they need to work you, and you're there to make money, and you're, so their first instinct is, buy an ad.
Right.
So you have to break that by actually exciting them about a story, and showing them how that story is something their audience needs, not just, hey, a new and improved product.
Right.
But so the way to do it is quite often not focusing on the product itself, but focusing on you as the expert speaking about the industry or something about, like, even if you're even if you mow lawns for a living and that's your company, and you think, well, what the heck am I going to, well, there are things that you know every day that we don't know about, whether it's about how grass has changed, the quality of the environment, the bugs that you're seeing right now, that whatever it is, there's stories in there you could be speaking about, reaching out to media saying, hey, Bob from Bob's Lawn Care has noticed this year we have more aphids than usual, and or whatever it is. And so now the story isn't Bob's Lawn Care has some sales that it's the best lawn care place in town.
Yeah.
But the fact that you, Bob, are on there speaking, they assume you must be the best lawn care guy in town.
Right.
That's the power of the media. When you see a real estate agent on there, you assume the media would look far and wide for the best guy, the doctor that's quoted as the best. No, they were the ones that presented the story in most cases.
Right.
Or they were the ones that give good quote, or whose publicist was available when they reached out and said, hey, I'm looking for a doctor who can do this. So there's existing media opportunities that that a publicist knows, but that you won't find for yourself, right? Yeah. But if you wanted to spend hours and hours a day doing the kind of stuff that we do, essentially becoming your own publicist, you could do those yourself. Then there are other things that, are just you putting out your own messaging, understanding what a press release is, understanding the editorial versus advertorial, and reaching out to your local media. And you can get, you could get a hit and get coverage if you're doing it right. It truly is, informational.
And I know you've kind of talked a little bit around it, but why don't you just explain the difference between the editorial and an advertorial?
So advertorial is, and this is what most entrepreneurs are going to tell me in their first, when they tell me about what they want the press release to be about. Right. And I have to correct them and go, no. Well, because they're not editors. Like, I'm very good at what I do because I have also been in the newsroom. I've been a writer. I've been a journalist. I've been a TV person. So half my brain, when you tell me the story you want me to tell an editor, is thinking like an editor. Like, is that nice, it's nice, but it's not. I only have 22 minutes in my news broadcast. I have 3 pages. So number one, think, is it worth, they have that limited space, that limited, very valuable real estate.
Right.
Is it truly, ask yourself, is this truly news? Or is this something is this really just an ad for my product?
Right.
An ad that, really harshly ask yourself that. Right? Because there's always going to be, that doesn't mean there's no way to get the news. There's always a way. That means you got to massage your, what you're suggesting. So you're not going to ever want to tell them, press release. I mean, in the business press, you may send them knowing it's not going to get any press, but just to tell the business press, we hired this CFO or blah, 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 right? But if you're trying to actually generate a media story, so you may put out a press release saying, hey, we have a new product, just, to let them know about it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get like a media news for that.
Right.
But when you want to get to actual generate the news, so you're going to talk about, like I said, figure what is news, what do you know about, what in your industry or about your product, or preferably in your industry around the bigger picture, can you speak on as an authority? And then when you're being quoted, they're always going to mention your product. Why are you the authority?
Right.
Well, he's the maker of blah, 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 the company, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So you might be getting your company in, sneakier that way. But basically, editorial versus advertorial, think like a newsroom, think and be very harsh on yourself, because they will. And once they realize, they're going to look at it like, oh, you're just sending me an ad. Circle it, they're not even going to tell you about it.
Right.
You just won't hear from them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And part of the thing about having a publicist is that from an entrepreneur perspective, yeah, we're selling you to the media, but from the media perspective, a publicist that has a good reputation, even if they don't know who we are, right, but they know our company is legit, we're expected to be separating the wheat from the chaff, essentially. They don't want to see us, a publicist. I mean, we can't send hey, press release, carpet company has new cleaning service. We would never get another press release opened again.
Right.
So they expect having a publicist is that credibility. And I've even had entrepreneurs be told, go get your publicist, when they've reached out to media, which I thought was ridiculous, because you should be able to tell a story, and normally you can. But in one or two cases, maybe it was because of the way they reached out or something.
Yeah.
But the reporter, actually, the editor said, look, that's nice, good story, have your publicist reach out to me.
Right.
So they don't want their time to be wasted. Think about how many emails you get in a day.
Yeah.
Right? They're not there. They don't have time to teach you and massage you how to talk to media.
Yeah.
Give me a story. They might print it. They might interview you. It's got to be ready to go. So you have to be really harsh on yourself, understanding if it is an ad, then make an ad. If it's not a story, think of a story.
Yeah.
You are a story, your background story. Why are you doing this? What brought you to this field? There's always something in there.
Yeah.
People have a hard time finding that sometimes, but there's always something.
Yeah, and I think it's good to stop there at this point and say, before you embark on this path, you need to check your patience too, because this is not, if you're lucky enough that something is going on big in the world, you might get, because it is happening right this minute. But, I was watching the news the other day, and they were doing a story on somebody that they had filmed probably back in March or April before the pandemic even hit. And so, I guess the thing is that sometimes, even though they film these, you're not going to get you may not always get instant gratification off of it. So this needs to be a long-term play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you have to realize that you're building relationships, like your media relationships are limited where you live. Even if you're in a giant media center, there's still only 2 newspapers with 2 editors, or, and one big couple big TV stations. And you don't want to be burning your bridges where they're like, oh, that guy again, he always sends me crap. No, understand what they need when you reach out.
Right.
But also don't forget, there's also a ton of opportunity to start with community television, like your cable, whatever's, or your local weekly newspapers that actually have a mandate to highlight the local community, right?
Yeah.
Those are often great places to start to tell your story and to get those first couple of links.
Yeah.
And really, it's all about, before you even reach out to any of them, before you reach out to you as a podcaster, you have to, tell your own story in that compelling little paragraph that makes people understand what what you can bring to the table too. So.
Right. Yeah. And I don't recommend, let me ask this as a question. I don't recommend going out and trying to find charity work in order to promote your business. But if you're involved in a charity, or you're involved in some other kind of human interest type story, those are always good, because it's not a sales, you're helping the community by doing this. You just happen to get some publicity off of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? You bring up a good point there too. That's always, I come from a human rights perspective and an activist, so 100%, that's always, always good. Yeah. But just even to build on that a little, even if you're not doing a charitable thing or a particular, you just talked about, what you opened up there is the other side of yourself, not just your hard business self, right?
Right.
And everybody has that. So even if it's just your personal interest, say you're a passionate Beatles fan like me, or you really love snowmobiling, or whatever your thing is, there's media talking about that. So look at maybe that media. And then you're in there talking about your passion or whatever it is. But again, there's always a descriptor. Who is this guy I'm talking to?
Right.
So they're talking to me about the Beatles. If I go on a Beatles podcast just to talk about my passion about the Beatles or whatever, you know, or I mean, they're always going to talk. They're going to introduce me before who this. So they're going to say we're talking to a publicist, Tracy Lamourie, Lamourie Media, and right there, that's giving you again somebody might be attracted to you because of that human side you showed too.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, and they may choose you from a business perspective for that reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and this kind of, you know, I'd had a conversation not long ago about being vulnerable, and this gets back to that. We need to open up, be vulnerable, kind of show ourselves and who we are. You know, it's something simple as even like if you like dogs, that, you know, we show dogs in our pictures, we show them with us. It's a connector. People want to do business with people that have like interest or feel the same way that they do.
Exactly. And that's more and more true now. Like your vibe attracts your tribe. You know how they say that personally, but I find that's very true in business too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been very genuine who I am. A public PR company, it's an open, you know, I got the bright red hair that my mom told me not to get 20 years ago when I was, you know, a kid.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you can't do it at 18.
Yeah.
And, you know, I could have, going into corporate boardrooms, you know, I could have said, oh, I need to tone that down or but I also worked in entertainment. So it's all about how you present yourself too.
Right.
You have to know what's appropriate. If you break a rule, like for example, having bright red hair instead of being, you know, you have to, otherwise you have to be presented well. You have to know exactly your environment. You have to dress well. You have to have a resume that reflects, you know, your skills. And that, you know, so I mean, so if you can, you know what I mean? You can break rules if you know what the rule, I mean, within reason.
Right.
If you know what the rules are and what's appropriate and when to be, you know, and sometimes that can become your calling card.
Right.
So people will come to you for, you know, they want, you know, who knows? They want that. At this point, everybody comes to me just for my resume. But early on, maybe people would come to me if they felt more. Everyone, you know, maybe they'd feel more comfortable with me rather than the corporate suit and tie guy. And so I'd get a whole, you know, who knows what brings someone to you? But we never know who doesn't come to us, right? Like I don't know about the businesses that I've maybe lost because someone looked and said, "Oh, I don't know about the red hair publicist." Right. But we know about the ones that come to, you know, so it's quite possible that people, and that's okay because you can't serve, no matter what your business is, you cannot serve everybody. Yeah. Serve the people that are, you know, your, whatever, your, you know, your audience, your vibe, your demographic, could be many demographics, but don't worry about, you can't, you know, like you can't please everyone like your mom always told you. You can't, like, it's better to be genuine and be real. Especially now, all eyes are on us. We can't hide. Social media, it's gonna, if you're pretending to be something you're not, you're gonna come out, you're gonna slip up.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna post something that doesn't fit that character you build, you know.
Yeah, the other thing too that I had been interviewed for a story a long time ago, and it wasn't like I don't know what I guess you call it a feature story. It was a network that they have a string of reporters doing stories that I guess go directly to internet, things like that. But even though we don't get featured on the news, there's still value to having those little blurbs that come out from, you know, on an ABC or NBC or big network website as well. Not only the story itself, but the power of the backlink coming from that to your website eventually.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah. What do they call those? What do they call the kind of story that is? I guess it's just filler for something for them to have. They just have to have so many high volume of stories on their website.
So you mean for like aggregate? You mean the aggregate news site kind of thing where you see all that, where they don't do their own story, but you see the, like, it'll...
No, this was she actually worked for NBC, and so she called and she was doing a story, I don't even know on what, but like she called me, got a little blurb from it to post it to the big network site, but it wasn't like a feature film, it wasn't a feature that came out on the 5:30 news
Oh
or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. That's true. Like, yeah, they do that a lot. Like, because they actually do their own news beyond, what you see in the 22 minutes of the news, right?
Right.
They're all like, yeah, like most of if you go to like any TV station, say like CNN or wherever, right?
Right.
Whoever, NBC, you'll see like, their little TV pieces, but also with their TV piece, they'll have an actual article.
Yeah.
Well, who wrote that article? Like a print article, you know what I mean? So it'll be
Right.
like, here, click here to see our TV, our piece, our when it aired, and then here's this whole big. So yeah, so there's a lot. It's not just filler. It's like that. That's the bulk of
Yeah.
what they have.
Yeah.
What comes on the 22-minute news and TV is whatever, but they drop people because they are news sites in general. So they're
Yeah.
beyond just what they put on the TV, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we look at the other thing that it's a little bit out of the scope of the media, but it's these backlinks. And so we look at the power of the backlink and where somebody that has linked to our site come from. There's power in that when it's a huge site linking back to us. So there's all kinds of
Absolutely.
value
Yep.
to be found, even if we can't become the feature story. There's still a lot of value.
100%.
Yeah.
You don't need that's exactly. That's why a lot of these, podcasts like yours are just as valuable as, being on being in the newspaper one day.
Yeah.
That might or might not stay online. But
Yeah.
you guys have really good SEO. You search my name later, you're gonna come up with 5 other podcasts I've done are gonna come up. So later on, when somebody comes, oh, who is this Tracy Lamourie that I'm talking to on LinkedIn? Yeah, they can look at my bio, they can look at all that stuff, right? That I say in my bio. But how do you verify that? Are they going to call up the awards show? Well, I guess you can look at the pictures. You know what I mean? But I mean, you know what I'm saying? In a lot of cases, people have a bio this big, whatever. I'm not checking. I just assume it's true, right? But when I go and if I search and Google their name, and then I find them, you find 10 podcasts of me talking around the world. I can't fake this knowledge that I'm giving. I can't fake. So number one, there's the credibility that somebody else is talking about what I'm doing, right? And then also you're actually in a deep dive with that person so when someone sees, okay, there's 10 Tracy Lamouries on podcasts, I'm going to go click and start listening. By the second one, oh, here's one in Bangkok, here's one in Texas, whatever. But then they start listening.
Right.
And she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. There's you have a half an hour deep dive with at length. So this could be way more valuable than that little 2-minute NBC thing. Because now someone that listens, they can actually hear and understand, oh, wow, she has a lot of knowledge. I really like to get, I like her personality. They could, by the end of this, really decide, I want to work with that person.
Right.
Right. Or just like credibility or whatever it is. Like, it's just, you're building your brand, but that's more than marketing in this world.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's everything in this world. I mean, people search you when they date you. They search you when they hire you. They search you when they rent your apartment. So get out there. Don't be shy. Like, you've got expertise.
Yeah. Well, we like to do business with, again, like we've talked about, people that we connect with and think the same. And so listening to your views, on how you would proceed with handling somebody's media relations, it's very important for them. I think it gives us a chance to become comfortable, because we're all stretched across the globe nowadays. So it's a kind of a long distance way to become comfortable with one another. So why don't you tell us a little bit? I know you've got an upcoming book, Get Repped, Build Your Brand with Effective Public and Media Relations. Why don't you tell us a little, when is that expected to come out?
So I'm hoping spring, and so is my publisher. Everything is literally done except me setting the final version because I'm always so busy publicizing everybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way that came about is one of my early clients that's been with me for 6 or so years, she originally hired me to get her book out there, a business book called The 30% Solution. And that's her brand is about civility and how that can, retention of potential clients and of your staff and all that stuff. Anyways, we made her book a business bestseller, and she was after that she decided to basically start her own do self-publishing instead, and to start a company where she would publish other people's books, soft skills, business. So now she's got about 10, probably 30 by now. Initially, she had about 10. Anyway, so they're doing really good and they're rocking. And she asked me to literally write the book on public relations because we had helped make her book a business bestseller like that.
Okay.
So she does business and soft skills and all that. And she thought a book on PR would fit. And I always wanted to be an author. I used to be a writer as a kid, never published anything yet. So I always said I would. So, you know, in this case, I joked. They asked me to write the book, but so this is my first book, hopefully first of many. And this is, you know, professionally about what I do.
Yeah.
And how you can, and it's about what people can, like a lot of things we're talking about here, what people can do on their own, what they should do on their own, or what they should get a publicist for, and some tips, you know, either way, what you can, you know, how you can do it if you're going it alone, and how you can choose a publicist if you're doing that.
Okay, awesome. So Tracy, we thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. So what is one tool that you use throughout the day, either business, personal, it could be a tool, a habit, but what is something that you use every day that you just couldn't do without?
Well, for sure, the interwebs. I literally built my business with an internet connection and, you know, a crappy laptop 10 years ago.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of belief in myself and all that stuff. So literally, you know, other than, you know, my family and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, just honestly, I think we have the world at our fingertips right now, literally, in ways that previous generations and previous entrepreneurs could only dream of.
Yeah.
And for those of you, you know, people sitting around and complaining they've watched everything on Netflix during COVID, you know, there's a lot of ways you could be using your time to your true advantage.
Right.
So that on the other side of COVID, you know, you're still standing when other people have fallen, and you're there to help lift them up instead of, you know, just being down.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, you know, one thing that we've actually started doing more cooking and food preparing, which has been kind of fun and interesting through COVID. So yeah, I think you make a good point also there, is that we should, it's not fun, but there are a lot of things we can do besides Netflix to occupy our mind, learn a new language, read a book, cook, whatever. Well, Tracy, also tell people, like, who is your client, what you do for them, and then how they can reach out and get a hold of you.
So my clients are literally across industries. I work in obviously with entertainers. I work with a lot of authors and public speakers, you know, which people would expect. But also I work with luxury real estate agents. I work with life coaches. I work with counselors who work with women who have, you know, are recovering after divorce or death of a spouse. I work with, you know, manufacturers who introduced recently beauty product manufacturers and beauty brands. I work with some marketing experts, a neuromarketing expert, an SEO marketing expert. So I work with a lawyer. I work with, you know, a diabetes expert. So literally, no matter, you know, right across the board, you don't have to be, you know, a celebrity. It's just about getting you as an expert in whatever you are. There are thousands of opportunities that I see all the time. And then we also create opportunities. So you can find me. Hopefully you'll have the spelling of my name down there.
Yeah.
But it's on Instagram. It's Tracy Lamourie PR Media. So Lamourie is Lamourie. Tracy Lamourie PR Media. On Facebook, Tracy Lamourie. On the interwebs, lamouriemedia.com. And yeah, I'm definitely available for consultation.
Okay.
To talk, a free consultation if anybody wants to have a call with me personally about, you know, how it can benefit their business particularly.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we will include all that in the show notes as well. So, but thanks a lot. Everybody reach out to Tracy, put her to work for you, getting you some good media coverage. And again, thanks a lot for your time today. This has been another episode of the Business of Business podcast. You can find us at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. So until next time, take care of yourself.